Hello everyone, my name is Brian Fisher of FisherFAST, and today we're going to be taking a look at this, what I would consider the ultimate SL55. This is a 2003 Mercedes Benz SL55 AMG. This car has done approximately 47,000 original miles. It has never been in any accidents, and it has a clean Carfax and title. It is finished in a very desirable and actually quite rare exterior color, which is called magma red. This red was only offered, I believe, for the 2003 model year SL, and then in 2004 on up they switched to a different hue or a different color of red, which is called Mars red. That Mars red is a little bit deeper, darker hue. It doesn't have quite the liveliness or pop, in my opinion, that this magma red has, and this really is a special color for this car, as you just don't see many Mercedes in red. So it's really something to see. The interior is finished in a black leather, and we're going to take a look at the interior here in a moment, but we'll start with a quick walk around tour of the exterior, and then we'll take a look under the hood, and as I mentioned, also on the interior as well. Along the way, I'll talk a little bit about some of the more desirable modifications and maintenance items that have been done to this particular car. So we're back here in the garage, and I have the dyno sheets for the SL55. It made 582 horsepower, 616 pound-feet of torque, and that's measured at the wheels. So if you're not sure how a dyno works, it actually measures the power output of the vehicle at the wheels after drivetrain loss. So when Mercedes rates the 03 through 06 SL55 at 493 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque, that rating is actually coming from the engine being out of the vehicle and being run on an engine dyno. So it's not losing any horsepower through the drivetrain or through, the AC being on or the power steering. You're sucking some of that power away through the accessory belt on the engine. And on an older car like this with a 5-speed automatic and a torque converter, you can expect to see about an 18 to 20% in total output lost through the drivetrain. On newer cars with DCTs or dual clutch transmissions, that figures somewhere down closer to 11 to 13%. And on newer 8-speed autos, I think it's a ZF transmission, they're pretty good, and they're about 13 to 15, somewhere in that range. With that being said, I actually had a 2003 SL55, or actually this one right here in front of me. This car was on the dyno as well. This has 40,000 original miles on it. It's a healthy car. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very good running condition. I put this one on the dyno as well, just to see the comparison, in power, so we can talk about that. And a completely stock SL55, put down 406 horsepower and 457 horsepower torque at the rear wheels after drivetrain loss. So like I said, you can put 18 to 20%, roughly onto these numbers, and that's going to give you your engine or crank horsepower numbers, which gets you to the 493, roughly, for the stock rated car from Mercedes. And these comparisons are pretty interesting, just showing the power difference. It's easy to talk about how fast and how great it feels. Being able to see it on paper makes a big difference as well. So this is a good comparison here. This is actually plotting some of the numbers against each other from the stock and modified car. So the darker lines on this graph are the horsepower. And look at 4,000 RPM. The stock car made 340 horsepower. And at that same RPM, we're making 462 horsepower on the modified car. And more importantly, down low, it's better to talk about the torque figures here. So the modified car is making 606 pound-feet, and the stock car is making 446 at that 4,000 RPM. And that's what really gives you that shove, pushes you back in the seat, that feeling of acceleration down low when you're taking off from a stoplight, or you're passing someone on the highway and you jab the throttle and you want to get away quick. That's what torque is doing. It's giving you the push and the shove, and after that, gradually horsepower takes over, and that's what pulls you up top. You're getting you closer to red line, getting you peak power. And that's really what, for me personally, I love supercharged motors, because that's where you're getting that instantaneous torque. You don't have to worry about no turbos spoiling up. That power is just, it feels like a giant big block V8, that there's no lag whatsoever, and the power is just instantaneous and ready to go. But we can see how big the spread is between the two torque numbers. And what's even better is it carries above 600 pound-feet of torque at the wheels, all the way through up until about 5,000 RPM, and it doesn't drop down below 500 at the wheels until 6,000 RPM. So this is a pretty nice flat curve. So whenever you're jabbing the throttle, like I said before, from 2,500 up to 5,000, you're going to be at that 725 pound-feet of torque rated at the engine, and that's what really gives you that very fast feeling of acceleration. And I got one more. This one is just showing closer to top end power. This is more important for horsepower on this one. At 5,800 RPM, the stock car is doing its max of 405 horsepower, and on the modified car at 577. And that's getting close to top end. Like I said, it tops out at 6,500 RPM. But you can just see how big the spread is, and it gets considerably bigger. The gap widens as the power goes up. So we're not falling off or losing any power through the rev band here. While we're here, I'll show you the quick list of maintenance and modifications, everything on paper. Some of them I'm going to miss a lot of stuff talking about this car. I can only talk about it so much, but there's a ton of stuff done to it. And just in case, and I know I will miss a lot of this stuff, you can see it here on paper as well. And then here are the modifications that are done. And one final note about the powers, it's not just about the the numbers here. I could show you dynographs all day and tell you how fast and fun it is, but it's more about the way the car actually responds to input as well. So the throttle mapping for the car was also redone, so it feels different than the stock Mercedes, and that's just talking about when you put your foot on the throttle. This car feels lively, energetic. It feels younger, for lack of better words. Whereas the programming on the stock SL55 feels, to me, a little bit lazy. The way it makes power, right out the gate, it feels more relaxed, and that's fine, because that's what Mercedes was going for back in this era. They didn't want to make it a wild animal, because that's not just what AMG was doing back then. So that kind of, like I said, brings it up to date, and it makes it feel, more fun. When you're ready to go, it's there. They said the throttle feels fantastic. And then also on the flip side of that, when you're just driving around cruising, going to the mall, if people still do that, whatever, it still feels relaxed enough to, you're not jumping off the line. The car doesn't feel frantic. I've been in a lot of higher horsepower cars that have been tuned that way. And it takes the daily drivability aspect kind of away from it when you don't want to drive it, because it feels that way. And you don't have to worry about this car feeling like that. It still feels docile when you want it to, but on the other side, it feels lively and aggressive and ready to go whenever you are. So now that we talked a little bit about that, we'll take a look around the car and show you the goods. Starting up front with some of the modifications, you can see the headlights have been redesigned a little bit. So they've been opened up and each individual component has been taken apart and painted. You can see this gunmetal metallic here. There's a very nice flake in it. That is a gloss. The trim ring around the actual projector lens is a matte silver. And the black bezel is now a satin metallic. So you got a nice contrast of colors and textures in the headlight there. And the inside portion was left chrome, and that's for the high beam lights. If you do paint that or mess with that, it severely diminishes the light output of the high beams. And this is the proper way to do it, so you actually don't lose any light output. And in fact, we've actually gained, believe it or not, double the light output by modifying some of the internal components in the headlights and switching to a 100% clear lens for the projector, and also by changing the bulbs and getting into some more of the internal components inside of the headlights there. We were able to double the light output, and at night you can see miles down the road without blinding oncoming traffic either. They're really well focused and extremely bright. We also have this single fin grille, which is from the SL55 style vehicle. These are normally chrome. The fins or blades on this grille, they were taken off and painted in the same metallic gunmetal paint as the headlights. There's a very nice pop to it in the sun, you can see. Left the Mercedes emblem chrome as it should be. They have some contrast up front. It switched to the black and chrome newer style Mercedes Benz logo on the hood. Up front, the three grills to the left and the right in the center were also taken off and painted in a gloss black to bring them back to their original look there. So there's no rock chips or anything in these grills. They all look brand new. We also have these smoked side markers for the running lights here on the front bumper. Taking a look at the wheels. These are Fertini wheels, and they are rotary forged. They're very light for a 20-inch wheel. We do a 20x9 in the front and a 20x11 in the rear. It's running a 255, 35, 20 up front and a 295, 30, 20 in the rear. So running that little bit taller sidewall gives you a little bit more protection and also comfort and also traction as well, as compared to a 30 and a 25 series profile, which you would normally run on this car. And it's also nice because you don't have to lower it as much either, because it actually does raise the car up about a half an inch. So you only have to lower it about a half an inch to get it back down to a stock height. In the front here, you can see you still have a lot of room under the front bumper there. You can easily get a pop can under there. But then you have the look of a very lowered car as the wheels are nice and tucked. So you have the best of both worlds there without having to slam the car to the ground and ruin the ride quality. The finish on these wheels is a brushed titanium, and it also looks super stunning in the sun. Not sure if the camera can pick it up, but it almost looks like a stainless steel appliance that's been, brushed, but it has a darker tint to it. Looking inside of the wheel, you can see the AMG caliper. All four calipers were removed from the vehicle. They were disassembled and powder coated in a gloss white with the curved AMG logo on the front calipers. We are running ceramic brakes on this vehicle, and we've already put about 200 miles on it, and I can tell you from experience, you don't have to worry about cleaning the calipers, as they've also been ceramic coated with 3 coats of ceramic, and they're very easy to keep clean. Dirt just washes off with a hose, and within the 300 or 200 miles we put on the vehicle, there's hardly any dust on the brakes anyway, just because the way ceramic works are very nice. You can see the side profile here looks great, with just being lowered that little bit. Moving down a little more, you can see the blades on the side here, or the fins. These were also taken off and they were paint matched to the front headlights and front single fin grille. It's the same metallic gray or gunmetal gray. And behind there's a gloss black instead of just a matte gray plastic that the factory would use. It's a very nice contrast on the red. Moving down a little more, we have the carbon fiber mirrors. These are reminiscent of the new AMG GT style car that uses this claw-like design in here with the LEDs on the mirror caps. The door handles were also removed from the vehicle and painted in the same gunmetal gray or metallic gray. Up on the top here, this is usually a matte silver, so everything's color matched. Moving down, we get to the rear wheel. Like I said, this is a 20 by 11, and this is what they call a phase 3 style of wheel, so you have a very deep concave style wheel in the rear here. You can see how much it sinks in. You start from the front and move around. It gives it a crazy look on the road. Same thing in here. So the brake cap powder coated in this beautiful gloss white. Come around to the back, we have the SL55 style rear spoiler. It's also carbon fiber. Below that, these are the upgraded SL55 style taillights. They look pretty similar to the standard SL, but they do have more LEDs down in the bottom row here. And this part here is a little bit clearer than the smoke on the earlier cars for that section there. And they do look great in person as well. Below that, we have a carbon fiber rear diffuser on the bumper here. And this diffuser actually was discontinued, I want to say 2 years ago. And I was able to reach out to the manufacturer with some specifications and have this piece remade. So this is the first car that I put this new style big fin diffuser on, and it looks just so much better than the curved fin. You know, having these 90-degree angular fins on the back of the bumper makes it look much more aggressive and sporty, in my opinion. Moving into the interior here. They said this vehicle has about 46K on it, 46,000 miles. And being completely honest, these seats are some of the best that I've ever had in any SL with any mileage. They have essentially almost no wear on them. The part you normally see it the most on is this bolster where you get in and out at, and there's absolutely no wear to speak of on anything on the driver's seat or passenger seat, and looks great. And this is all original. None of this leather has been re-dyed to my knowledge. You can usually tell if a panel has been re-dyed, and this all looks original to me. On the door panel, you can see this trim here. And this is real hand-laid carbon fiber trim. This is normally a walnut or a maple trim from the factory that makes the interior look very dated. So I removed all the interior trim and had it done in real carbon fiber to update the look, and it makes a huge difference. You wouldn't think something like that would be that big, but when you're in a car like this all the time and the sporty nature of it and the aggressiveness, the carbon fiber really fits it instead of the, what a couple of my friends like to refer to it as is the old man wood. It really makes the interior feel much newer and younger inside with that carbon trim. You see the shift knob is also done in the same carbon fiber, and it was refinished in a perforated leather instead of the Alcantara that was normally on it. And that matches the steering wheel as well. You can see the steering wheel is a flat bottom steering wheel now, and that was also taken out. The original one was taken out. Like I like to refer to the original one, it almost feels like you're driving a school bus. It's very thin rimmed and just large in general. When you're holding it, it doesn't feel like it fits the the nature of the car. This is a very thick rim diameter. This is very different from the stock car. It's hard to tell on camera, but when you're holding this wheel, you feel like you're you got all the power in your hand there now. You can really control the car well. It just, like I said, fits the nature of the interior and the aggressiveness of the car now. So it also has the aluminum paddle shifters as well on the stock wheel. These are just plastic buttons on the back that are normally gunked up or broken. So this has the brand new paddles in there for the manual shifting. And you can see the center console or center trim tunnel here was also done in the same carbon fiber as well. And my two most favorite options to get on an R230 SL55, 100% would be, my most favorite is the panoramic glass roof. This just makes the interior feel much more airy, open, and light, even when you have the top up. You have the best of both worlds here. You have the hard top and the convertible, but now you got the big glass roof in there. It's almost like being in a greenhouse with all the glass around you. And if it ever does get too hot when you're driving, which it really doesn't because it's just tinted very well from the factory here, it does have a sunshade that you can pull shut. So you can pull that shut if it's a little too hot for you, or open it back up if you want the sunshine coming in. You wouldn't think a car like this would have a lot of trunk space or room for bags, etc. But it actually does. So whenever if you want to put the convertible top down, this divider or partition has to be in place like this. And even with it in place, you can see there's still a good amount of room under here. But if you require even more room than that, you just pull the partition up. But now you can't put the top down, but you do have a lot more room underneath it here to put some big bags or cargo, whatever. You can see this is the starter battery here, like I was talking about, was relocated from the position in the engine bay to the back of the vehicle here. It does have a kill switch right there. You have even more cargo room here underneath. Like I was saying about the seats, passenger seat looks just as good as the driver's seat. Once I put the top down, you'll be able to see a little better without the shadows here. But same thing over here, is absolutely no wear to the bolster. Looks brand new. No chips or tears or scratches of any kind on there. It looks like no one's ever sat in that seat. So you do have the option for heated and cooled seats as well. So here's your cooled button, heated button up here. A lot of the earlier cars only had heated seats, so you'll have the same button, but it'll be a two-stage. Up top will be one, and down below it'll go a little bit harder if you push this button. But for this car, it does have the air conditioned and heated seats is a nice option as well. So it does have the stock stereo in it, which actually sounds really good, believe it or not. It is a Bose branded system. You have a nice subwoofer underneath the passenger side in this area here. It gives it a lot of bass. But the thing I like to do is stream music from my phone, as pretty much anyone does now. Sirius radio and XM radio, in my opinion, do get a bit tedious and boring. There's a lot of repetitive stuff on there, and you still don't have that freedom of picking exactly what you want to listen to. So I was able to retrofit the stock stereo with a very nice Bluetooth system here, that you're able to stream music from your phone with this RS Blue Me HD. This does have a built-in audio DAC in it, so you get very good audio quality from Bluetooth, as well as a Clarion equalizer in here. And the reason I put this equalizer in here is the earlier 2003, 2004 cars has the adjustments for bass and treble, as you would expect, but it doesn't hold the settings that you put in. So every time you restart the vehicle, just in auxiliary mode or aux input, it'll default all those settings back to 0 again. So you're always changing those if you're like me and you like to turn the treble and bass up on a stock stereo. So now you can just leave those alone at 0 and come over here and set this up one time. You know how you like your bass and treble. There's a ton of adjustments here to really fine tune it, and it's just a set it and forget it, so you don't have to do it every time you get in the car. And it really does have a great sound quality to it. And everything's tucked up on the top of the glove box here, so underneath there's no wires, nothing hanging down. You still have full unobstructed room to put your paperwork or cards or whatever you put in the sunglasses, and you don't lose any of that storage space in there. To start the vehicle, just have the key in your pocket or close by. Put your foot on the brake. And there's an engine start stop button right on top of the shifter here. Put your foot on the brake, push the button. The car roars to life there. To get into the auxiliary input mode, you just hit service, SVC, jog to aux over here, push in, and now you're in the auxiliary audio source for the Bluetooth streaming from your phone. To put the convertible top down, you just pull this tab up. Well, before you do that, you can also see you can raise or lower this roll bar here manually as well. I'll show you that in a second. So you just grab the button here or lever and you pull it towards you as in a motion where you want the top to go to the back of the car. So you want to pull it towards you for that. And you can see it working here. Keep it held in, and you'll get a message on the screen, hard top open. You know it's complete. You can release the button. And manually put down the windows over here up front. It's one touch. nice thing about manually raising and lowering the roll bar, which you can do in here. So this car does have the optional windscreen on it from Mercedes. This does cut down on a lot of the wind buffeting if you're cruising on the highway, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, however fast you want to go. It does make it a little bit more pleasant inside having that screen on there. Makes a pretty big difference. Also looks pretty cool with the roll bar up. And you can manually put that back down. For the suspension, like I said, it was lowered a little bit. This gives it a great stance. I like to leave it like this when it's parked. If you do find that the ride is a little bit too harsh for you, you can still have the ability to raise this up very easily, about another inch in total. And the way to do that is with the height adjustment button here, right in the console. So one press is going to give you about a ½ inch, two press will give you about a full inch. So we'll press it and we'll jump back and see if we can see it going up. You can see the wheel gap has got considerably bigger from pressing the button there. You can now get about 3 fingers in between the tire and the wheel. Give you some extra ground clearance if you're going over a lot of speed bumps, trees in the road, whatever the hell you're driving over. You have enough clearance now underneath of the car, so you're not scraping up that front bumper or anything. And we'll put it back down. To get into service mode with the hood here, all you do is grab the latch, pull it in just about a quarter of an inch, and then you're able to pull on this tab here in towards you. You set the phone down. Then you can raise up, and now the hood opens to a full 90 degrees, almost. It's about 80 degrees. It gives you a ton of room to work in there instead of the hood being on top of your head the whole time. If you ever have to do any work in there, you just want to show the engine off. And no words necessary for this engine in here. This thing looks amazing. This is something, whenever you go to a car show in the summer, a car cruise, people are going to want to stop and talk to you and ask you about this motor. In my opinion, I would if I seen it. We'll go ahead and shut it down just to get a little better audio quality here, so talk about some of the things in the engine bay. So the first big thing, you can see the Supercharger has been painted in a satin gold. There's the gold Supercharger bolt right here as well to match. It has the polished billet aluminum surge tanks for the Supercharger as well. These are updated. The cool thing with these is also having better flow and volume within the tanks themselves. These can be flipped around 90 degrees or 180 degrees, I'm sorry, and you can run a top mount intercooler setup with these, but you have to get rid of the intake system. There's a lot more work involved with doing that. But the option is there if you want to do that down the road. You can see the carbon fiber intake system for the air filters. This was completely custom done as well. This uses dual 3-inch tubing on both sides, all carbon fiber. And the carbon is probably the best material for making an air intake system, just because if you use an aluminum, steel, stainless steel, the pipes could hold heat and heat incoming air through those pipes. which you don't want. You want the nicest, coldest air possible coming through those pipes, and carbon fiber does not retain heat at all, so it's always cool. And up front are the air filters for the engine now. You can see a little bit of green poking through here and here. To change these filters, you just want to undo these 4 bolts to hold the grill on. Give the grill a little bit of a twist so the grill will come off. And the air filters are right behind there with 2 clamps that hold them on. Very easy to change. They do have water guards or rain socks on the filters, so you don't have to worry about getting rain or splashes on them. It's a very nice system. It allows a lot more air in. The only time you may have to ever worry about the filters up front is if you're driving through a puddle, that's up to the filters. And if you're driving through something like that, you got some more serious problems to worry about than your air filters up there. Out back is using an 82mm throttle body, so you got a lot more air going into the blower now. Has a ported snout for the supercharger. The supercharger was completely disassembled and reinstalled with all new gaskets to ensure there were no air leaks into the blower itself. The fueling has been updated with some 550cc fuel injectors. The cooling system has been majorly overhauled as well. Up front, there is a massive heat exchanger in line with the stock heat exchanger. The core on this heat exchanger, I believe, is about 3 inches thick. It's a very thick unit. It's going to get that heat out of that water really quickly. And then I also moved the stock heat exchanger forward. So normally it comes in a stack of other radiators and heat exchangers from the factory. You have the ABC suspension cooling radiator. Then you have the AC condenser for the air conditioner. And then after that is the heat exchanger for the supercharger circuit. And after that is the radiator for the engine. So they put the heat exchanger for the supercharger in between the AC condenser and the radiator, which is probably the worst possible place you could put it. It's sucking in heat, blow from the AC condenser, while the radiator for the engine is expelling, a couple 100-degree heat as well, from the fluid in there. So it's heat soaking all the time. So I moved that forward in the stack, so that is now number 1. In the position there for the stack of heat exchangers. So you're going to get less heat transfer from the other radiators, and it's first in line to get the cool air coming in through the bumper now. Up front here in the top left corner, this is normally where the starter battery would reside, which has now been moved to the trunk. And this is where your supercharger coolant is going to go in. Let's see it in there. And this system, this tank alone, I think holds about 1.5 gallons of fluid, and it almost quadrupled the capacity in total from the stock system. So you have a lot more volume of fluid in there now, and also the additional heat exchangers. This pump, there's a high flow pump as well from Pierburn. And that pump is set to run 24/7 when the key is in position 2 or the car is running. So it's always going to be circulating fluid through the system. In the stock system, it only comes on at certain temperatures and then shuts off again. So now you're having that coolant pump through that system all the time to try to keep it as cold as possible. All of the coolant lines for that system were also upgraded to 3/4 inch in diameter, up from the 5/8 inch diameter of the stock system. So you're getting, again, more volume and more flow through that system to get that heat out of there and keep those air intake temperatures as cold as possible. The valve cover gaskets, the valve covers were also powder coated in the same gloss white as the calipers. And at that time, the valve cover gaskets were also done. Spark plugs were done. Those were also changed. Up front, the double idler pulley was changed out. This is always a weak point on these cars here. It also has a belt wrap kit from UPD on here. And this just puts a lot more tension on this belt here. Normally this extra pulley is not here, and the belt comes straight down from the factory. So now it curves back in underneath of the Supercharger pulley to give a lot more grip on that for running that extra boost. On that note, this is a 72mm clutched pulley using a Gates RPM Supercharger belt made specifically for blowers. On the exhaust side, everything is custom as well, as you'd expect. Has a set of Kleeman mid-length exhaust headers into a set of Cook's green high-flow catalytic converters. These converters are meant for force-fed, turbocharged, and supercharged engines. They're capable of holding up to 500 horsepower per converter as per the manufacturer, so you don't have to worry about any restrictions or limits there. Also, while keeping the environment clean and friendly. What's not to like about that? If you've ever been in a car without converters, you know how bad they stink, especially sitting at a red light in a convertible. That's it's not pleasant. So this keeps the smell out of there, as well as keeping you legal as well. You don't have to worry about your emissions testing or inspections. You're always going to pass, no matter where you're at with these cats. These are the good cats. After the cats, there's a double X pipe for the crossover. Normally you have one crossover in a car. You have one H pipe up front, like Mercedes did with this car. I tried to mimic some of the newer systems that are found in like newer Corvettes and Mustangs, and they got a really cool sound to them where they have two X pipes in there, and that just changes the tone and sound of that exhaust, and it makes it sound like it's revving faster while giving it a little bit higher pitch and reducing drone as well inside the cabin. After that, there's a set of custom mufflers that have been adapted from a different system. And on the highway, you're cruising 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, whatever. There's no drone, there's no loud resonance, there's no boominess inside the cabin, even though this is a pretty much straight through exhaust system here. The mufflers keep that drone and resonance in check, which is, you have to have something like that with the super loud car. And it's really the best of both worlds. When you're just cruising around town, it's not very loud. It's kind of tame, to be honest, which is great. You can still tell it's modified, has a good sound to it. You're not going to annoy your neighbors or anything like that, though. But whenever you put your foot on it, it sounds like the gates of hell are opening up. This thing sounds amazing. Nothing else like it. You wouldn't expect it from this type of car, to be honest. It's just, it just makes the back of your hairs on the back of your neck stand up when you're shooting through a tunnel or something. So that's all on the performance side there. So there's a lot of stuff done to it. I'm just going to point out some of the big stuff there. So that's going to wrap up the tour on this SL55. And to be quite frank, I'm actually going to be really sad to see this one go. And I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, as a lot of people say that when they're selling their cars. But this is such a unique color combo, and then the way it just came together with all the, the carbon and the wheels and the exhaust and the performance and the engine bay. It's just a really fun, cool, unique car. And in a world full of Corvettes, Mustangs, cars of that nature, they're kind of a dime a dozen when you're out driving in the summertime. I almost guarantee you're not going to pull up next to another highly modded R230 SL55 like this. And that just really does give you a special feeling for this car. But I'm probably starting to ramble on here, so I'm going to close it out. If you do have any questions on this particular vehicle, feel free to drop them in the comments below, or shoot me an email at FisherFAST@hotmail.com. Thanks for watching.